Welcome to this episode of the MPE 2025 Awards Winners Series, where we pair and showcase not one, but two MPE 2025 award winners to discuss what matters in merchant payments. My name is Neira Jones, and it is my pleasure to welcome Stewart Sime, Group CTO at Paynt, and Rob Neely, Founder and Director at Securely Group, to hear their insights around today's theme. The innovation engine, innovation is in their DNA. When startup meets scale up. And at the very end, I'll be asking them a surprise question, one they haven't seen coming. Stick around to find out what it is. But first, let me tell you about our two winners and what makes them perfect to discuss our theme today. Paynt won the Most Innovative Payment Solution Award for 2025 for revolutionizing hospitality tipping. Their brilliant digital solution ensures staff receive 100% of tips whilst eliminating admin headaches for businesses and making tipping effortless for customers. A game-changing win-win-win innovation. Securely Group won the 2025 Best Startup Innovation Award for after a rigorous Dragon's Den style competition in our Innovation Hub, where Securely Group triumphed as the final winner out of 12 worthy startups. Their social media identity securitization technology is poised to redefine digital payments. Welcome, Stewart and Rob. And this is a fast round episode, so let's dive into our questions. So, first of all, let's talk about your winning moment. What did the award mean for you, and what was happening in your company at the time? First to Stewart.
Well, for us, we were very confident of our product. Obviously, there's been a lot of years getting there with it. But we knew from our feedback from our users, from the merchants, from the end users as well, that we had a great product. But obviously, being recognized by the industry itself is that next level of recognition and understanding that we're going in the right direction. And also proving that actually what we've now got is the foundation of a product that we can then continue to build on, continue to innovate on, continue to move forward. And, as I said, when we received the award, from our perspective, that was the first iteration and therefore, the beginning of where we go with our product and our journey.
Well done again. And to you, Rob.
Well, I've got to say, Neira, first of all, we didn't expect to get through to the final three. Okay, the level and the talent there in that room was extraordinary. The last thing I expected was to get through to the final three. So to then go on to the next night and win it, well, that really knocked my socks off, quite literally. I had no thought process that was going to occur that night. What did it mean to us? Look, winning an award, winning an international award, and we've been fortunate enough to win two. We've won the MPE in Europe, which is just outstanding, and another one in the US. But winning it, it's like currency. It's validation, right? And because the payments industry and the banking industry and the finance industry look at you and go, wow, okay, so you won that amongst a group of your peers, and that to us was so important. We put, as Stewart just said, we put 5 years into building the technology and patenting the process. So to get that recognition, it just means the earth to us. And I think, to put it in value, I'd say winning that award and winning multiple awards internationally, especially as an Australian company, we're a long way away from everyone. But to win those international awards and the MPE award, it's worth 10 times every dollar someone could put into your company. It really is incredibly valuable. And I highly recommend any startup thinking about, even if you are from Australia, give it a crack, go across to Europe and see how it goes.
Absolutely. So, staying with you, Rob, talking about sort of beyond the trophy and the award, which in itself is quite outstanding and indeed a benchmark in the industry. Can you tell us what challenges you're solving now, and how has your market position evolved as a result?
Sure. So I can reflect on when you announced the award that night, Neira, and you were wonderful that night, by the way. You did an excellent job.
Thank you.
But when you announced that award, you said it's been, Securely's being talked about as the next PayPal. So to put that into context for the listeners and the viewers today, is that we've developed a social media identity securitization solution where you can certify or validate an existing social media profile. And it doesn't matter whether it's Facebook profile or even a Tinder profile, it matters not. But the banks are able to actually validate a profile because they already have all of the KYC data. So no one had thought about tipping it on its head. Everyone was waiting for the social media platforms to actually certify and validate. And they've got no interest in doing that, I can assure you. But when we realised, and we went, hang on, why don't the banks validate their own customers' profiles? Makes sense. So when the award occurred and we won in Berlin that night, we were in the middle of discussions with banks around the world. And what it did was just add that validation, as I talked about before. But more importantly, the reach out for us from banks globally when they saw it in the press over the next couple of weeks. Like we never intended to be talking into banks into Africa or South Africa. And we had the largest bank in Africa reach out to us and say, hey, we're really interested. We saw what you did with the MPE awards, because this problem of going back to challenges that we're solving, this is a global problem. I mean, there's $1 trillion a year being lost to scams. $1 trillion.
Absolutely.
Now, $1 trillion, to quantify that, there's only 9 countries in the world that have got a GDP above $1 trillion. So it's massive. It's just astonishingly large, and it's going to criminal networks. So we're so pleased that we're able to offer our services and our orchestration and our patent to banks globally, because it will solve the challenge for people is knowing what a scam is and what isn't a scam. They're getting so elaborate and they're so hard to detect. I get some coming across and I can't tell the difference, and I work in the industry 24/7. So the challenge that we're fixing right now, and we'll be announcing a few large banks in a few large countries shortly, including the US. We've just signed up Securely Corp in the US. So, and we're putting on a general manager or a CEO over there. And we're already talking to banks. So that's the challenge we're solving. Sorry to take up so much time.
Well done again, and Stewart, what challenges are you solving now, and how has your market position evolved since winning the award?
Well, I think Rob raised a really good point there. It's about solving real world problems. There's enough product out there that seems shiny and great and fabulous on the surface, but is it actually doing anything for you? Is it improving the experience? And from our perspective, making sure that we're producing a solution that actually is well-rounded. And by that, I mean, it's not just about solving a problem for the merchants, it's about solving a problem for the person. Actually, when we're talking about tipping specifically, that money belongs to an individual, right? You purposely decided to give that money to an individual. Why should they wait? Why should they actually only receive a part of it? But at the same time, why does a merchant need to spend 3-4 hours when the bar shuts or when the hairdresser shuts at the end of the day to sit there and stream through all that sort of element? So that's a huge point for us, that it's actually solving a real world problem, which immediately, the second you put that into somebody's hands, they've actually then got a device. So you're actually understanding that they have a solution to a problem that existed for them. You've solved that problem, but you've now also got access to that individual and to that merchant in a different level than you had before. From a larger perspective, what that obviously means for us, it means that we're actually able to prove and to show the world that we've got reason for expansion. We've recently done some M&A in North America. We're going out there in a very strong perspective right now. And at the same time, internally, as a startup, as we were some years ago, and now as a scale-up, it's about being able to say to the guys internally, this brilliant young workforce, it's a real-world solution. There's something tangible there, right? Whereas I think particularly in the startup space, it's very much about the innovation, the creation, the ability, but is somebody going to take it? Is somebody going to buy it? Is the world going to accept it? Because whether we like it or not, there also has to be a business case for what we're trying to achieve, right? I mean, that's the honest truth. But if you can do that, if you can solve a real world problem, then there almost certainly will be a business case. And that then allows you, as Rob also said, it allows you to look at other markets and people go, you know what, we saw you guys at the award ceremony. We saw you pick up something. We want a piece of that. And that immediately breaks down that first barrier in terms of going out there into the other parts of the world. And of course, you actually get confirmation back in. As Rob said, he started to get contacts from other parts of the world he wasn't even thinking about, as did we. And it's an exciting time. And it's really about carrying on that journey and making sure that your product then doesn't lose focus. It continues to solve problems. But actually, when you go into new regions, are the problems the same? Can we adapt? Can we move? Can we adjust? And honestly, if you've got a good basis, the answer to that is almost certainly yes. You might not know exactly how to start with, but that's why Rob and I have great teams sat behind us that help us achieve that, right?
Absolutely, and indeed, you've both of you have hit it on the nail. It takes perseverance and vision to make the kind of impact that you've now experiencing, which actually brings me very, very neatly to my next question about vision. Where do you see payments evolving in your respective categories, and any advice you could actually give to other innovators? And I'll stay with you, Stewart, for this one.
I think the important thing is, first of all, to focus on actually being stable. I mean, you don't get many chances. So the important thing to do is, if you're going to go out there, particularly with something new, make sure you've gone through that process correctly. Make sure that you've got some friendly people on board that will actually help you, do that debug, because everything you're doing in an office environment is very different from the individual necessarily at the end of the day in a bar or whatever. So whoever's going to be using your product, it can be a very different experience. So take that into account. And also just make sure that you do have that very, very strong foundation. If you don't get the first piece correct, that foundation, and building anything else on top will actually just be a wrapper. It'll end up at some point coming back and biting you. And we've seen it. The traditional world of banking is a great example. Nobody was brave enough to pull the trigger on revamping their technology in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And now what's actually happening is they're all having these horrific consequences, which is great for all of us because it gives us the option and the opportunity to get in there, but they're still actually battling with, still trying to find developers that know something that was 30 years old, right? So it's important to make sure you've got that foundation right that also allows for you with the next level of innovation, because payments will only become quicker, easier, and that's the expectation of the consumer as well. Everything's real time. They're expecting everything to happen instantly. The old days of overnight batching and, waiting until the end of the week to pull things together are long, long behind us. And the more that users are using things today, this instant experience is what's expected. And we have to make sure we're doing that, but still within a secure and appropriate manner. And that will always be our challenge, and it will only get quicker and easier, frankly.
Absolutely. And talking about the secure and appropriate manner, Rob, to you, same question.
Sure. Look, I see it probably differently in 5 years, and I've got the advantage, I think, I've only been in the payments industry for the last 5 years since we began this startup. So I can look at it from the outside looking in, which is probably why we were able to develop the orchestration. We didn't look at it. We weren't constrained. The way I see things going, it's not going to be a transaction in 5 years. It's going to be trust, right? Because we've got to merge the digital world into the banking world and the digital ID into the payments world. so that we know that we're dealing with who they say they are, and they're not a mule and they're not a scammer and so forth and so on. So I think a great way to explain it is if you look at how many patents the large digital platforms have around payments, it gives you an idea of where we're going to be in 5 or 10 years. So, for example, PayPal has 3,000 patents in place. They've got another 1,600 going through the process. Google has 6,000 patents in place. And if you look at it and you look at where they're going with GPay and PayPal and Stripe and Apple Pay, it's telling us where we're going to be in 5 or 10 years. And I see it as the banks will not be facilitating the immediate transaction that they have been previously. It will be the big data companies filtering down just as Apple Pay does right now. Okay. And I think that's where they're all positioning themselves. So, I mean, you won't need a traditional banking license to have the global view if they're sitting at that, in that, the third party PSP sort of area. And that's what's going, in my mind, that's what's going to happen. They wouldn't have all these patents in place if they weren't looking forward to that. So, and if you look at the size or the quantum, and Neira is probably better to tell us how many payments go through globally every year in transactions, but it's astonishingly large. I mean, even the area that we're working in, which is the online marketplace transactions, that's 17 billion a year. Right? It's almost as big as PayPal. PayPal did 24 billion last year. And the area where we're working in has no trust at the moment because you don't know. So that's why I go back to where I started, where I think it's going to be not just the transaction, it's going to be the trust that's involved in it. So that I know when I'm making a digital payment to Stewart, I'm definitely getting it to Stewart, right? Even more so internationally speaking, but certainly, for example, obviously Stewart's from the UK, I'd say, but, it's long been said over there that 8 out of 10 scams are coming out of, or Barclays Bank, in fact, said 8 out of 10 scams are coming from social media platforms because there's no identification layer there in that area. So the scammers are moving in. And if you think about the $1 trillion that I talked about earlier, it's an open marketplace for them. So overall, we've all got to join together. Banks, the large digital platforms, everyone needs to join together. And I think that's where we're going in 5 years' time.
I absolutely agree. I mean, and you've seen this convergence happening over the past few years of digital platforms, marketplaces, payments, identity, which, you and I believe that is absolutely fundamental to payments, as do many of my peers. And the technology platforms, as you said, they are getting involved. The incumbents are getting involved by having more and more involvement with identity and the merger of these concepts. And certainly you and I know in the room that payments are absolutely critical and vital. I mean, we were in it when payments were actually boring. Now they're not anymore. Payments are actually,
Yes.
Everybody wants to be in payments.
You're spot on, Neira. And the other important fact on that in that context is that everyone now wants the friction removed.
Yeah.
Right? No one wants friction because they found that they can pay with their phone by tapping, right?
Exactly.
They don't have to insert anymore. I saw a lady yesterday insert her card and then put a pin in. I went, what year is she living in, this lady? Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the friction, because they all want the friction removed, we have to increase the identity. Okay,
Exactly.
So that it's one of the areas we've got to focus on, and certainly with the banks that we're working with at the moment, I can't obviously mention them, but they're all focused on the identity side of it. How do we attach that digital identity to a bank account? And that's where we fit in. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we could talk about this for hours and hours, I'm sure, but we don't have much time on this episode, so we're going to have a quick fire Q&A session, and I'll start with you, Rob, again. So really quickly, what's next?
Okay, so we are flat out at the moment expanding our team so that we can accommodate the banks in international territories for the licensing deals that are being put forward. And every payment system in every territory is different. If you go from Australia to India to the US, they're all different, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what we've got to deal with.
Excellent. Describe your company in 3 words.
The next PayPal.
Okay, that's 3 words. Give me 1 word to describe the merchant payments industry.
Right now, it's transforming.
Fabulous. And now to you, Stewart. What's next?
A continued push on the products and new territories.
Fabulous. Describe your company in 3 words.
Brilliant, fast-moving, innovative.
Fabulous. Now give me 1 word to describe the merchant payments industry.
Exciting.
It is indeed. So there we are. So we're all good, but we're not quite done yet, because actually I have a surprise question, and this is my final question to both Stewart and Rob. Both of you actually don't know about this one, so are you ready?
Sure.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Did anyone reach out to you or your company just because you won the award? Rob?
Absolutely. I can't say who, but certainly very, very large banks reached out because we won that award.
Thank you. Stewart?
Absolutely. From merchants through to actual suppliers as well, in terms of an interest in terms of what they can do with the product and where we're going with it next.
Fantastic. Well done again to both of you. You were fantastic winners. So thank you so much. You've been fabulous guests. I'm Neira Jones, chair of the MP Awards, and you've been listening to Stewart Sime, Group CTO at Paynt, and Rob Neely, founder and director at Securely Group, talk about the innovation engine. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, follow, subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with someone who'd love it. More coming soon on The Voice of MP.
Thank you, Neira.
Thank you, Neira.
Thank you, Rob.
Most welcome.